Thank you, settlement and guns coming.
Fucking texting me. Shit dick. Fuck, cocksucker. Oh, I hate doing these intros. Go to a bookstore and buy my book, Life the Party. Today's guest. Oh, I'm still on tour, everybody. Go to BertCast.com. I know I'm in Dayton and Fort Lauderdale. Today's guest, radio show legend and pioneer, John Debella.
This is Bertcast.
Oh, I see what's going on here.
I've got a break. I'm now obsessed.
What are you obsessed with?
Are we recording yet?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. I'm obsessed with. You know what's so funny is I would have never cared in my entire life if you had said getting on the New York Times best-selling author list.
Right.
But now that once you get a book, it's like the high watermark.
Yeah, right.
But you only really need to sell like 2,500 books. Really?
Because nobody reads anymore.
No one does. It's like back in the day, it had to be like 10,000.
Right.
Now opening week, you got to sell like 2,500, and I'm so close. I'm thinking about.
Well, they're not counting the ones you're selling at the club, are they?
No, they are. They count those. They count those.
Okay.
I was proactive about it, so I think all in all, I will have sold by myself with my own work about 750 books.
Okay.
And then pre-orders are. I don't know where pre-orders are now, but I think I got to be close. I'm dying to know. Well, actually, if anyone's listening to this, they already know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because by the time this hits,
yeah, I'm gonna drop. I'm gonna drop this next week. So by the time they hear this, they'll be like, "Oh."
Okay. All right. So they know something you don't know. So we're living in the past, and they're part of the future.
Yeah, they're either like, God, he thought he was close. He wasn't even close. Or they're going to be like, he was really close.
See, when you reach my age, you do everything possible to not live in the past.
Wait, how old are you?
I am about to be 64.
Really?
Yeah.
So funny. 64 seems so young now. It doesn't seem like it did.
I don't sing that Beatles song, by the way. I don't sing.
What's that one? What's that?
When I'm 64? No, I don't sing that song at all. I hate that fucking song.
When I'm 41, I'll still be drinking, sleeping in my underwear. When I'm 41.
No one ever believes, and I'll say this about myself, no one ever believes my age. Right?
Really?
I mean, yeah. Well, thanks. That just made me feel real comfortable. Really?
No, you really look it. Wait, how old were you when you got into radio?
27.
That's old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. My degree is in scenic lighting and costume design. I can sew.
Scenic lighting and costume design.
Yeah.
And what year what year was it when you declared that major?
1968.
That reeks of gay.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
In 1968,
I'll tell you a very funny, reek of gay story. I went to Hofstra University. Do you know who Chris Albrecht is?
Yeah, of course I do.
Well, Chris Albrecht and I have been friends since like junior high school.
He did a really good podcast on Barry Katz's podcast. Did you ever listen to it?
No.
It's really good. He's got an interesting backstory.
Oh yeah. And I know more of it than most people do. I know the parts that Chris don't tell.
Everyone that's listening, Chris Albrecht was a bartender at the Improv.
The Improv, right?
And went on to run HBO, and what we know as the heyday of HBO,
sure,
he created.
Yeah, he created The Sopranos is his, and oh god, just endless. I mean, it's just everything up until the past few years, really. And now he's Stars. So
yeah, he's a Stars. By the way, Stars has my favorite show ever, Black Sails.
Right? Yeah. I mean, so that channel is exploding.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so Chris and I, we went to Hofstra University together, and one day we're in the drama department, right? And he I think he was studying acting, and I was, I knew I could act, so I never felt I had to. Right, take an acting class, and I took a couple of acting classes, and I breezed them, and I go, okay, I have this down.
Yeah,
right? I don't need to study this. I've got it down. Right, so one day we're in the theater, the main theater, and they have a call board, and it's everything that's going on in all of the theaters, and we're standing there and we're looking at this one casting sheet and everybody that's on it, and we're like, gay, lesbian, being gay, lesbian. Right? And I look at Chris and go, are we doing something wrong?
You're doing something right, because they're all single women with no options.
It was just like we were. It was really, really hilarious, right?
Oh, that's crazy.
But no, I've been called that. I'm a sensitive new age guy. I have no problem with it. I have proudly been called. I have friends who referred to being gay as being modern. That was their code word for it.
Nice.
Right? And I have been proudly told that I'm a very modern man, and I really don't have a problem with it. You know, it's like I'm comfortable with my own sexuality. I know where I stand, and if somebody thinks I'm gay, well, more power to them.
Hey, I think I'm gay more than people think I'm gay. Probably. I always say my joke on stage is I'm not homophobic. I'm a homochondriac. Like, I'm comfortable with your gay lifestyle. I'm just afraid one night you'll get me drunk and trick me into it, and I'll like it a lot. So wait, 27, you start in Philly?
No, I started in New York. I'm in New York.
Yeah, Hofstra, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker. All right.
Really?
Yeah, born and bred.
So wait, what when you got into radio, what was like because I always put radio in like 3 categories, and that is it's like Wolfman Jack,
right,
the Morning Zoo profile, and then shock jockery.
Okay, all right. I was well. Then because you're younger, you're leaving a step out.
What's the step I'm leaving?
And the FM. Right, the big chairs, Wolfman Jack, hey, everybody, the boss jocks.
Yeah.
Right, and then the switch from AM radio to FM radio, and the guys who would stay there at night saying, "All right, we're gonna play you some Grateful Dead, but before we do that, let's look at the moon. The moon looks great tonight," and it would just go on, and tell you. So you had that stage, and that's where I came in. I came in during the FM years where it was all about the music.
Is that what Steely Dan had a song called FM?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Really?
That is exactly it. And the film, the incredibly terrible film, right? That song was made for, is based on a lot of reality. And probably the high point of that movie, I saw that as a press screening, right, with nothing but radio people.
Yeah.
And in comes Tom Petty, who is stoned out of his tits in the movie, and everybody is laughing hysterically because Tom was new to the scene at that time.
Yeah.
And anybody who had done an interview with him, and he was stoned.
Really?
So the fact that he was stoned in the movie was like, this makes all the sense in the world.
Oh, that's great.
But we laughed at the film for the wrong reasons. So
wait, did you have one of those shows where you talked into the mic?
I didn't have the late night one. I had the morning ones. I had a show on. I started out on a Sunday overnight, which is nobody's going to hear you, so go in there and make mistakes, right? And then I got the Saturday morning show, or what I referred to as the "We Want You to Quit" shift, right? Saturday morning 6 to 10, and then the Saturday overnight 10 to 4. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah. So that was a brutalizing thing to my body, but eventually I ended up getting Saturday morning 6 to 10, and then Sunday morning 7 to 1. So I had this great show and this great platform, and I was on for 6 hours, which no other jock was.
Holy cow.
And it gave me the opportunity to really spread my wings and get some stuff. And because of it, and I am the only person, I've told the story a couple of times before, but I am the only person in this industry, I am positive, I am the only person in this industry who could say this, that I was taken off of the air because of high ratings.
Wait, what? Why did they take you off the air because of high ratings?
Well, they had a guy on during the week, this guy, Larry Kleinman, who had an incredible voice, but that really was all of his talent.
Is that what it was about back then?
Back then, yeah, it was all. It was
just about your voice.
Yeah, the way you sound and your speak.
Would they write copy for you as a DJ?
No. They would write the copy for everybody, and it was just a matter of how did you deliver it. And it was all about being the jock and being the guy on the radio and telling the stories and all of that. But Larry did this show during the week, and he was their star performer, and he had this one feature. They used to have this feature called the Magic Bus, and they would take a topic, a news story, something like that, and they'd intersperse pieces from songs into it. And then when it was over with, and it came as a service, it came on a tape, right? It was like 3 or 5 minutes long, and then when it was over, he would program topical music about it. So if it was about transportation, he would play the Magic Bus by The Who and Driving in My Car, and things like that, right? So, and it was just a huge bit. It was a huge, huge thing. Well, they noticed that my Sunday morning ratings were higher than any of his weekday ratings. And they actually said this to me. you're probably not following the format. Right? Because there's no way that you could be doing better than Larry Kleinman, our star performer.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, wait a second, how about let's just throw one possibility in there. And he goes, what that? Maybe I'm better.
Yeah.
Right? You know? And they're like, no, that can't be. And they literally pulled me off the air, but asked me to stay at the station.
Are you serious?
Right? And by staying at the station...
They're like, you're using steroids. Something. We're going to have to put an asterisk by these numbers.
Exactly. Right? But they asked me to stay and be the station's production director, the guy who made all the imaging for the radio station and did the commercials and all that stuff. But by putting me in that position, it gave me the opportunity to shine in a way that I didn't know I had the ability to do. And that brought a program director from another radio station to me, and he said, look, he says, if you can do, he says, I'd love to make you a morning man on a top 40 radio station, right, which was like the curse if you were in FM.
Oh, right? That's so funny. It sounds like it would be a blessing now.
No. Well, now it ended up being one, right? But
it's kind of like, and I go back to my buddy Cowhead, who changed his name, by the way. But like, he's got a radio show in Tampa, and he got put on, and he just thought it was like, then he's going to hate that I'm saying this, but he got put on classic rock.
Right. And
then now it's like classic rock was the place that you should have been, because they got rid of a lot of the classic rock music, and now those are open talk shows.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is I work at a classic rock station, and we keep all the music, and I'm fine with it.
By the way, when I'm on the road, I listen to classic rock stations because that's the music I like listening to.
Well, you know what? Because this brings up the problem with rock and roll nowadays. The problem with rock and roll, and okay, my core audience is 25 to 54-year-old men and women, adults, as they put it, right? I'm number 2 in the market behind my good friends Preston and Steve. We work for the same company. Those guys kick ass. God bless them for it, right? Yeah. I'm number 2. I'm happy to be. I've been in this market 31 years. To be number 2 after 31 years in the market, it's a friggin' miracle.
Okay? Yeah, you're telling me.
Right?
I'm number 7 on my network.
But no, I'm trying to remember why I get it. But my number 2 group of people is 18 to 24-year-old males.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the question is, why would that be? And the reason is because rock and roll has become so homogenized. And has been, it's like a band comes out and they have a song and you go and you buy the album and most of the rest of the album sounds like that song.
Yeah.
Where when they find somebody like Led Zeppelin, yes, Led Zeppelin sounds like Led Zeppelin on everything they do, but every song sounds different.
That's really interesting. So it's almost like as if these young bands have said, we want to be like Led Zeppelin, and they go, we'll just start sounding like one thing.
Right.
But Led Zeppelin, you're right. They're totally right. They totally don't sound... some songs don't even, you're like, what is this doing on the album? Because this doesn't even sound like what you'd expect.
Which is also the reason why I have no sympathy for the record business, right? Because the record business fucked itself.
Do you remember the payola days?
I wasn't there for that. The closest I got was fishola.
What's that?
Somebody took me out for a fish dinner.
Really?
Yeah, that's really about it. The payola thing was really, really, I mean, it is, it cracks me up that the federal government looks at radio, and to this day, I have to every year sign a payola/plugola statement that I am not doing this, right? And although I do plug things, the things I do plug are good, charities and people doing good work in and about the city, or something that's going on that I think is a great idea. And in that case, it's really just my opinion. It's not me, and I do it once. It's not me trying to push something. Where in the plugola days, it was songs where people were getting paid for putting songs on the air, and the reason why that's illegal is it's technically mail fraud. Now follow. Here we go. Guy pays you money to put this record on the air. You report to the Billboard charts how much you're playing it. Other radio stations see that report and think that it is real. Meanwhile, you might not even be playing it at all. You're just saying you're playing it, right? That Billboard went through the mail. that Billboard got to.
Shut up.
It is mail fraud.
That's like an Al Capone switcheroo.
Exactly.
Holy cow.
Right. But at the same time, so the federal government goes off doing this. Do you know when you walk into your supermarket and you see a pile of different Coke products at the end of an aisle, or a pile of different Frito-Lay products at the end of an aisle? Somebody paid that supermarket big money to put that at the end of the aisle. It wasn't because it was on sale. It was nothing like that. There's a reason why it's just Kraft barbecue sauce at the end of the aisle. Somebody's paying for that, and they're paying extra money for it, and they're paying it off the books, and they're paying it behind the scenes, and nobody's investigating those bastards.
I always wondered how they picked. Like the other day, I was like, Rolling Rock was at the end of the aisle, and I was like, I thought to myself, I haven't had Rolling Rock in a while, and so I grabbed a case of Rolling Rock, and I was like,
it was worth the investment.
And in my head, I was like, what thoughtful-minded gentleman that works at this store said, you know what, no one's had Rolling Rock in a while, but I guarantee you, Rolling Rock came in, they're like, this is a Whole Foods, we're gluten-free, can you throw us in? That's crazy. So now, so when you start, were you by yourself, or did you have a partner?
No, I was by myself.
Have you always been by yourself?
Until I would have like maybe a newsman or something like that. It would come because we still did news, right? That would come in once an hour. But for the most part, no, I was always by myself. Right? I was by myself from my very first show until we launched the Morning Zoo. Yeah, I'm the asshole. Yeah. Well, technically, Scott Shannon's the asshole.
So Scott Shannon
created the Morning Zoo with the name.
Yeah, fill in anyone that's listening, because this, by the way, is the most fascinating thing to me, because this is radio that I remember. So when I was a kid, there were two shows that you could listen to. You could either listen to Q105 with the Morning Zoo,
right,
or you could listen to Ron and Ron,
right. Okay.
And those were the only two shows you could listen to in Tampa.
Was that in Florida?
In Tampa,
in Tampa.
And if you were with your mom and your dad, you listen to the Morning Zoo. But if your uncles were taking you anywhere, you listen to Ron and Ron.
I see. Okay. Now. What year are you listening to the Morning Zoo?
No, oh, wow. Jeez. I always, I'm guessing like the 80s.
Well, it would definitely be the 80s.
80, I'm trying to think. I graduated high school in 91, so 4 years before that, because that was before high school. So then 80.
Okay, so you
86.
Now, are you listening? You're not listening to Scott Shannon, are you?
Scott Shannon, Cleveland Wheeler.
Okay, all right. So that show breaks up, and everybody goes like different ways.
Okay.
Right? One guy goes to Texas, Scott goes to New York, right? And the program director from that radio station comes to Philadelphia. I've got a show going on with a couple of wacky guys, right? And the show is called The Debella Travesty. And they do a whole bunch of research, and people really love the show. The show's doing great. Problem is, the majority of people don't know what the word travesty means. Right?
Yeah.
This is a good name.
That's a really insightful. It's like you're playing to a group of people that may not get it. It's like me when I wrote a book. Someone was like, "Do your fans read?" I was like, "No, I'm not sure." I'm like the Dr. Seuss of drinking authors.
So the program director comes in and he says, you should consider calling the show the Morning Zoo. Now, I hadn't heard about any of this show in Florida at all, right? And one day, and by that time, my show, the Travesty, had 5 different people on it. We just kept growing and growing, right? And one day I said, this has become more than a travesty. It's become an out-and-out zoo, right? And all of a sudden I realized, I said, wow, you know what? Maybe that word would work, right? So I didn't know about any history of this show, because I've never been one to pay attention to what other people in radio are doing, because I will be influenced, and the last thing I want to do is be influenced by another radio show, because then the next thing you know, you're robbing bits from people.
Yeah, I'm the same way with stand-up. I try not to watch too much.
Yeah.
I try to watch the greats to make sure I'm not writing anything similar to what they're writing.
Right.
But as far as like anyone, I like Attell, I always watch because I'm just a huge fan. Chappelle, I'd go see only because it's Dave Chappelle.
Right.
But as far as other stand-up, I try not to watch too much of it.
Now, what about Neil Brennan? Right?
I love Neil Brennan.
Let's say if you're going to go watch Chappelle, why you've got to watch Neil Brennan.
Yeah, Neil Brennan, Kevin Brennan too. Kevin Brennan's a monster.
I love Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin was a regular here on my show.
Really?
Right? And he's from Philly.
Yeah.
Right? And then he decided to go to L.A. Him and his his green card wife and
So we go back to the morning zoo. So
he comes up with the idea and he says, you should call it this, right? And so we do, right? And the show, we're on a glide path. I mean, the show prior to it, the show was just building and building and building and building and building. Right, and then we call it the zoo, and it makes it even, that much. It's the final wrapping that the show really needs, and the show is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the extent, and nobody in the city was ever able to say this again, even as big as Howard got. Right, he couldn't say this because the landscape had changed. But when we hit our peak, every third person in this city listened to the show. One out of three people in Philadelphia, in the metro, listened to the show. It was insane numbers. And although there are people who have higher numbers now, because the demographics have changed and the methodology has changed, no one has ever really reached what it was we did. And we did it for the first time. And we were a contemporary radio station. It was unheard of for a rock radio station. We were in classic rock at that time. I was at MMR at that time. Right? And it was national. It was unheard of, and we became so big that every city in the country decided to have a show called The Morning Zoo.
So when you did it, it was more like just the cutting off of the sleeves of Larry the Cable Guy. It was the one thing that branded it perfectly, and everyone's like, "Oh, now I get it."
Right.
Without having to hear you know what you're going into.
Exactly.
And so and then that works, and then literally everybody
else is cutting off their sleeves, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah. I remember a lot of people cutting off their sleeves of their shirts when Larry the Cable Guy started blowing up. Like maybe I can leapfrog on this.
But what they didn't realize was it wasn't calling your show The Morning Zoo, right? Honking a horn every once in a while.
Auga!
And going
Friday.
Right, yeah, exactly, right? And unfortunately, I'm responsible for that. I could play that Friday thing for you right now until this day.
Can you?
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing that is my favorite thing in the world.
So you want this? This is what
fucking
you want?
love it.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to lay that in because I just realized it's not feeding in through the board.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Get on here.
I love that.
I will stick it in there afterwards.
Oh, I love that. That is my favorite thing. I have my buddy, my buddy Cowhead is the first guy I ever really knew in radio. So his name's Mike Couts. I should call him that because he tried to change. He was changing it, but I still call him Cowhead. And he was like my real introduction to like a subtle obsession I had, which was morning radio. I do believe it's the perfect extension of a person's personality, the perfect extension of a comic's personality. And I think that had I not gotten into stand-up, I would have tried to desperately get into radio. I think I would have tried to find my way through radio. But that Friday thing, and then especially when you hear everybody's working for the weekend.
These are all Debella things. I'm telling you, all these things. I did them first, and again, I don't care who did it second. It didn't matter to me. I wasn't one of those people. He stole my bit. I mean, it's like so many people bitch and yell about that. The best example I ever heard of. There was a morning team. I was in Pittsburgh for a while. Well, the sky is brown and yellow, and the plants are as smart as the people. It's not the edge of the universe, but you can see it from there. Just a sworn oath I had after living there. All right, and so there was this morning show there that was like the long-standing morning show. There were a little old school. There were a top 40, sort of in 1980 it is, a slightly old school morning show, but very good.
Yeah.
And I read an interview in the newspaper with him, and one was like the Sunday magazine section, and one of the questions that the reporter asked was, "Do you ever steal bits, take bits from other radio shows?" And one of the guys said, "No." He says, "That would be wrong. Stealing somebody else's bit is wrong." Now, we have done bits that other radio shows have done. We've tested them on the air, right, to see if it would work for us. The guy says, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." And then he names this one bit, and I forget what it was, but it was like one of their most famous bits, right, that they did every day. And he says, "You know that bit?" And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "We've been testing that one for 10 years.
That's an interesting motto that radio has. Is radio does not mind borrowing successful bits.
Well, because it's not the idea, it's the presentation and the performance. Right,
that's so fascinating.
Because it's like saying, if I report a news story, should no one else in radio report that news story?
It's so fascinating because stand-up's the exact opposite. People will steal presentation and performance and just change the words.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. But where does the theft begin? All right. Is in stand-up. I mean, because if you look at style.
Yeah.
Right? There are so many. Look at how many Stephen Wrights there are out there. How many people who you could tell, all right, he's not doing Stephen Wright, but this is based in Stephen Wright.
That is, right?
And how many are based in, nowadays, how many are based in Louis C.K. and how many are based on.
It's so funny. In stand-up, the line's drawn when you repeat the exact words or close enough to the exact words that another comic said. Mm-hmm. But we're completely cool with you using that person's style. And I think. I know that I've heard a lot of people say this, but when you're young, you can't help but borrow style from someone because you don't know how to.
Exactly.
You don't know stage presence. Right. You don't know how to do it. And for me, it was like, I just had a very distinct style. I guess I found my voice before I learned how to write a joke. So I'm the opposite. I'm like this is going to sound horrible, but I think anyone that knows stand-up will get this. I was like sometimes you'll see this with black comics more than white comics, is their stage presence is fucking bananas. Like they know they know how to present, but they haven't really figured out the writing, so they'll be a somewhat derivative until they find their voice, and then once they find their voice, they blow up. White comics, it's the opposite. So most of the time, they learn how to write and have no idea how to find a voice. So they steal the voice.
I see some guys at Helium, and it's like, dude, you are a brilliant writer, but you have absolutely no presence, right? And you always know the guy who has when fuck is every other word, or fuck is the adjective that emphasizes every joke. You have no presence. You have no identity. I admire, throwing the odd, F-bomb here and there or saying shit on the air, that's fine. But when you're using it as a tool of the act, no.
Yeah, I think it's for so many people, it's just a way to kind of express emotion as opposed to use the word, and myself included, by the way. I am not separate from this. So how long did you do the Morning Zoo for?
We did the Morning Zoo from 1984 to maybe 92.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
So 92 is when I went to college, and that's when radio fell off the map for me. Like I had no clue. I wasn't really kind of into it because you're in college. No one's listening to morning radio in college.
Oh, that's for damn sure.
Yeah. Now everyone's listening to podcasts in college because that's like in college it's so interesting because people try to market to that age demographic, but that's the last consumer. Because they're not watching TV, they're partying on Thursday nights, they're out all night at weekends, they've got class in the middle of the day. When they've got time, they're napping, or maybe, I guess, like I know that I don't think I have a lot of podcast fans in college now that I think about it. I think all my fans are like working people.
It's more than possible. Well, then again, how many college kids are at comedy clubs?
Not many.
No, because I can't afford it.
Yeah. It's so funny. You're either a big college comic or you're just, or you're not.
And the only reason why you're a big college comic is because of Comedy Central, or a podcast, or a video cast, or something like that.
Comedy Central was brilliant, and what they did is they marketed a certain type of comic to a certain demographic, and then did tours to that demographic with those said comics.
Yep, exactly.
And I remember wanting to be one of those comics so bad. Now it's like, I love Comedy Central, and I would work for Comedy Central any day of the week. I love the people there. They're the people that give you a career a lot, and they stamp you. They stamp you as official. You're an official comic. You've done an hour special with us. You're real. But I think Comedy Central's audience is a tad bit young for my demographic. It's like when you look at like guys like Kevin Brennan. Like I don't see Kevin on Comedy Central.
No. But if you go to their website and you look at you put in comics and then that first comic page shows up.
Yeah.
There ain't a college comic on there.
Yeah.
It is, well, they are, but it's Louis C.K.
Bill Engvall.
It's Bill Engvall.
Yeah.
It's Gabriel Iglesias. It's, what's the hell's his name? Big fat guy. I'm
going to only guess Ralphie because he's big. Okay.
Yes, Ralphie.
I was like, Tom Segura?
John Debella.
Oh, it's me. Was it me?
But you see all these people, and they're not college comics.
No.
They are the and they're the milk and butter of Comedy Central also.
Yeah.
Or the bread and milk or milk and eggs or French toast. I don't know, whatever I'm making.
So wait, did you used to have comics on the air or like come in studio when you were doing the morning zoo?
Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. When I started putting comics on the air, nobody had put comics on the air. Nobody ever put comics on the air. How much did I put comics on the air? I opened a friggin' comedy club. I owned the Comedy Factory outlet here in Philadelphia.
Are you serious?
Co-owner of that with Clay Heery.
That's where Kevin Hart got his start.
No kidding, right? You know what's the wild part about this? The friggin' movie company, the company that runs. This is how stupid publicists are, right? The company that runs the advertising for movies in this marketplace.
Yeah.
All right, brings Kevin Hart into town, and they bring him to radio stations except they're not bringing him mine.
Really?
Yeah, well, because they figure this movie isn't for my audience, right? Meanwhile, Kevin Hart gets his start at my comedy club.
Yeah,
right? We had one here and we had one in Baltimore.
Keith Robinson.
Yeah.
There was
one of my oldest friends in the world.
Yeah, Keith Robinson, Big J. Okerson, Kurt Metzger, all the guys that they all kind of made
and more than that. And
much more than that. Yeah,
more than that. All right, but so everybody, we had comics on the show all the time. All in and out. I used to do a week of live shows in Atlantic City, and we're talking about 1,000 people in the main room at Trump Plaza at 6 o'clock in the morning, with another 1,000 people waiting outside, right, to get in, because we would turn the audience over at 8 o'clock. So we were on from 6 to 10. So if you were in the first 1,000 people, you get to go in.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock, they all had to leave, and we'd bring another 1,000 people in.
Wow.
And there would be, every day, there would be 3 bands and 3 comics who would perform during the course of the show.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, and Seinfeld was on my show. Seinfeld was on my show more than once. Seinfeld was on my show. He took the red eye. He had done the Tonight Show the night before, took the red eye, and came on my show the next morning. And we insisted that he bring something to prove that he actually was on the Tonight Show.
Really?
And he brought the plaque that was on his dressing room door.
Really?
With the Tonight Show half moon and stars logo on it. Yes.
What comic killed the hardest that you remember?
Bobcat Goldthwait.
Really? Bobcat
Goldthwait. This was when Bobcat was in the height of Bobcat.
Yeah.
This is how a Bobcat interview would go. Bobcat Goldthwait is my guest. 10 minutes would pass. We'll be back with Bobcat Goldthwait.
Really?
Because there was not there. Boom. I love Bob so much, so much. To this day, we're still friends, right? But it's like comedy for me. I mean, I love comedy on so many different levels. It's frightening. I love the science of writing, the way a joke is crafted. I love. There's nothing I love more than somebody who does great recall. Somebody who starts a joke somewhere 3 minutes into his act, and somewhere a half hour later that joke comes flying back in.
Yeah.
That's brilliant to me, right? Because that joke was so damn good 3 minutes into their act that a half hour later he can do a recall on it, right? And that person and the audience just gets slayed by it all.
Yeah.
Right? I'm up for intelligent comedy. The smarter you are, right, the more I really enjoy it. I mean, like I like low, right? But there are people. Paul Mercurio, friggin' brilliant. Right, absolutely brilliant comic. Man's got serious ADD, but brilliant comic. Christopher Titus.
Yeah.
Right. Again, brilliant. Just big thinkers, big thinkers. I understand why Louis C.K. is funny. Right? And I love Louis C.K. on TV, like when he's on The Tonight Show, because that's when he proves how smart he is, because he doesn't have to get all dirty and uncomfortable. But what makes him appealing to so many people is not why I like him at all. and I am the only person in America who hates Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Really?
I'm just like, nah. It's like, I never found the humor, the humor in uncomfortable comedy. You making me uncomfortable isn't entertainment for me. It's discomfort, right? It's like why I stopped watching Seinfeld after the masturbation show. After the masturbation show, I was like, there's no way this show will ever get better than this episode. And it never did.
That was a really good...
Right? And actually, after that episode, the show soared.
Yeah.
The show soared, I think. Right?
Yeah.
The show soared, right? But it never... I mean, it just... Again, it became more about people's idiosyncrasies and their insecurities. And I was like, I got those people in my life. I'm not going to be entertained by them.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not entertained by them in real life. Why would I take a half hour of my life and watch them now? So comedy and my show have been hand in hand for as long as there's been my show. And
really?
I take great pride in being a straight man. It's difficult to do. Right, I'm not looking for credit for it, but there would be no Lou Costello without Bud Albert. Right?
Yeah.
I love finding that thing that makes a comic. That's why I always want to know when a comic comes into my studio, I want to know their act. I want to know not necessarily exactly what they're going to do, but unlike some people about, so I hear you like merry-go-rounds because the guy's got a merry-go-round bit.
Yeah.
Right? I will never do that. I will never do something like that. I'll engage the person in a conversation that makes them remember that they have a merry-go-round bit.
You did that to me this morning.
I do that.
Yeah. You've done that to me a lot. Where it's like they'll go like, what are you talking about? Like we sat in the green room. But very few hosts will go out and say, hey, let's do a pre-interview and find out what direction you want to go. Mm-hmm. Most of the time here are the good hosts in radio, in my opinion. It's guys who like to listen and like to laugh. Mm-hmm. Like guys that enjoy good conversation. Like I love good conversation.
Right.
And I love to laugh. But I'm a really bad listener. Like I'm a really bad listener.
You're pretty good now.
No, that's because you're interesting. There's been times where I don't listen at all, and people call me that. They're like, call me out on that all the time. So, but I love that, and then I love people that engage. That like you're really good at engaging the interview and driving the interview. So it's like one of the two, But yeah, that's the best when you get led into. Like I've done it before. Another one of my buddies in radio, Elliot. You know Elliot?
Sure.
Yeah. Elliot will lead me into bits sometimes that'll shock me, and I'll go, "Oh my God, I just did that!" And he's like, "I know." Like he's looking at me on the other side of the mic, going, "Lose the intensity. I just read your book. That's where I came from." And I'm like, "Oh, you," and it'll catch me off guard.
Because the problem is most disc jockeys are lazy. I mean, if I have a comic come in the room that I have never seen before, right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find every bit of material I can find on that person, right, and get an understanding of what they're like, what they talk about, what they don't talk about. And it's like, and like I said to you, there is nothing dumber than a comic who comes in and says, I can talk about anything. Because if you can talk about anything, then why the fuck do you write an act?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, no, you can't write it. You can't talk about anything, right? Let's talk about stuff that you can talk about, that you know that you can, because I'm trying to help you become more famous. I'm trying to help you sell tickets. I'm trying to help you impress this club owner. You're going to get on stage and you're going to do 4 shows, 2 a night, whatever it is. Maybe during the course of those 4 days, you're going to speak to 1,200 to 2,000 people. I'm going to open up your microphone and you're going to talk to 1 million. Are you really going to prep more for those 1,200 than you are for the 1 million that you're coming in to talk to me with?
Yeah, it's an arrogant way that comics, and I'm guilty of it a lot. Like I've always like, oh, I can, but then it's like, if you can talk about anything, I would then be the DJ that'd be like, what do you think about child labor laws in Asia? Like, oh man, I don't have a bit about that. Just steer me towards your bits. Yeah,
right. But you are smart enough to go, well, I don't really know about that, but I can tell you, Asians, and now you'll go.
Yeah,
now you'll go. I mean, so with someone like you, I'm comfortable with I'll always want to know, is there anything you want to talk about or anywhere you want to go, right? Because my time is limited. I'm a hybrid, and my whole career, it's been a hybrid radio show. We're not a talk show. We're not just music. Where there was a time where there was news and all that kind of stuff. Like the morning zoo had more going on. It had news, it had traffic, it had contests, it had guests, and I played 8 friggin' songs an hour.
Really?
7 to 8 songs an hour.
That seems like a high-energy cocaine show.
That's what it was. That is literally what it was.
Where are all those guys now that work for you then?
Let's see. One I don't talk to at all anymore because he just... I will tell you that person's name when because I don't want to trash him. I
get weird about that. Like you forget that people listen to these, and so you get into a natural conversation. And I've definitely I've talked shit about people on podcasts and then regretted it instantly. I just did a podcast with one of my buddies, and I was saying something about, and I was like, God, is this coming out right? I hope this comes out good because I like both the people.
Right.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. So
one has become persona non grata, not just for me, but for everybody else who was involved in the show.
Yeah.
Right. Another one's dead. Another one is in California, and he's a punch-up writer. Right. Another works upstairs.
Yeah.
Right, at MMR. Right. And is still working at MMR. It's, everybody else left. And other characters that were flowed in and out are still around the area, but for the most part, the core is that's where it stands. Right?
It's interesting. So then do they get rid of the format in '94, or do you?
No. They. This is, and you may have heard of this format. Okay. I believe in research. I believe there's a lot to be learned from research, but I believe that you need to understand research and properly read research in order for research to work for you as a tool. So Stern comes to town. We do our battles. It ends. It goes down. We drop from number 1 to number 2, as Howard said. And said to me directly. He said, he says, John, the thing that I never got was what was wrong with number 2. Just there were 34 more radio stations in the marketplace. All right, I beat you. I was number 1, you were number 2. There were 33 other radio stations who would be more than willing to take your place. What made them think they had to fix it? And here's their idea of how to fix it. I go into the general manager's office one day, and he says to me, listen, we've done some research, and we have found that the majority of people who listen to rock radio are men between the ages of 18 and 34. I said, okay. I said, we've kind of known that for a while. He says, but we also see that the majority of people who go to rock concerts are men between the ages of 18 and 34. They are supporting this format. I said, that makes sense. But the majority of people who go to sporting events are men 18 to 34. I said, okay. He goes, they're the same men. And I went, no, they're not. No, they're not at all. They are not the same men whatsoever.
Just people that get accepted for credit cards.
It's not it. No. We're going to come up with this format, sports rock.
Oh, geez.
And they combined me and another guy, this guy here in town, Howard Eskin. And Howard was part of my show, right? And he says, you guys are going to do this show together. And then to placate Howard, they told him, there's no leader to the show. No one's in charge. You're both equals, right? Which means the show was directionless.
That's impossible. There's always a leader to the show, and usually it's a person standing behind there's one seat that you can tell this is the person in charge of the show.
Right. Well, no. We both sat on your side, and there was an engineer over here.
Oh,
It was terrible. And so we went in literally one rating period. We went from number 2 to number 15, and the show never recuperated.
Really?
Yeah. And then, and then I went to Afternoon Drive.
Really?
And then a year later, I was gone. I retired. I flushed out of radio. I was done. I had made my money, and I made my money, right?
Yeah.
But I was single. I had no children. My first wife had passed away, right? And and I had enough money to, if I didn't change my lifestyle, right, I could live on what I had for the rest of my life. And then I met a woman. And she had a son, and we got together, and I needed a job. So there went retirement, and I ended up coming back to work in radio.
How long have you been back in radio?
I have been back in radio. I was gone about 14 months. That's all I've ever been out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I've ever been out.
It's not a retirement.
Right. Right. It wasn't at all. And I actually went back to work for YSP here in Philadelphia, which was Howard Station. Right, and everybody, and I know you've got 1,000,001 Howard questions.
I don't really know much about it. All I know is that
it happened.
That it happened, and that I've only heard him talk about it and say that it was. And I don't know if I've heard him talk about it or I've heard someone else say it. But he said it was.
I was on his. There was a special, The History of Howard Stern.
That's what it was.
And it was me talking on it. It was me, and I got an agreement with Howard. I said, "Look, I will be on your special, right? But you have to agree. You have to agree to not edit what I say, right?" And Howard said, "Fine." And after it was over and done with, I got a phone call from Howard. He says, "You know what?" He says, "You are a better man than I am." I said, "Why would you say that?" And he says because he says you could. He says to come on here to face this, to stand up to everything that I threw at you, right, and to come out the way you've come out. He says, you're amazing. And he says, I could have never have done it. He says, I'm amazed by you. He says, you're a better man than I could ever be. And that was that.
Well, he said it was like the biggest mistake he feels like in his career.
Really?
I think I heard that on the special. Is that one of his only?
Listen to it.
His only. Well, that can make sense.
I was there.
For those people that don't know, and like I said, I'm one of those people that if it's in my past, it's in my past, and I don't want to deal with it. Right. And there's stuff I don't like talking about.
It's not a matter of I mean, I know it happened. It was 28 damn years ago. 28 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Most people who are listening to this were not alive.
I know, but you got to remember, you guys were the Titans.
Well, yes.
And it's like when you see Joe Montana attack Joe Theismann, that's a bad example, but like when you see Joe Montana go after Jerry Rice,
right,
you're like, whoa. It is inherent in human behavior. Mm-hmm. It's like when Dane and Louie had their beef.
Right.
And everyone was like, Googling it like crazy, and comics would email you, have you seen this clip?
Right.
It's in part of people almost like to watch people fight more than they do watch make love. Mm-hmm. But so for the people that don't know, and I'll try to surmise this as best possible. When Howard got syndicated, he kind of came after you in a very, and I think I'm using his words.
I will fill you in because this is the backstory that most people don't know. Howard goes from DC 101 to New York, goes to work for Infinity. Right, they put him on K-Rock in New York. Right, he had been fired from NBC, and his mission was to crush Don Imus. Right, so he goes into New York, and within a year's time he kills Don Imus, and then they pipe him into Washington D.C. and in no time at all he takes over Washington, and he's going one by one, and eventually they bring him into Philadelphia. Now Mel Karmazin, the man who ran and owned the company, had this one thing with Howard, which was, you cannot syndicate your show beyond Infinity radio stations. You could put it on any Infinity radio station that wants to take it, but you cannot syndicate your show beyond Infinity stations until you win in all of the markets that I need you to win in. And one of them, the next one was Philadelphia. No problem, right? Because after all, everywhere he'd been within a year's time, boom, kicks him, right? Year goes by. I'm still number one. 2 years go by. I'm still number one. 3 years go by. I'm still number one. Right? So every time a ratings book comes out and I'm still number one, all he sees is the money he's losing and how his time schedule has been screwed because I'm stopping him from being syndicated beyond his own company. Right? So after so it got crazier and crazier for him. right? And what really incensed everybody was I did not respond. And my thinking on that was, that's not why people are choosing to listen to me. I'm not trying to sell newspapers, and that's what they wanted me to do.
Yeah.
Because the more that I would address it, the more it would become fodder for the newspapers. Well, I'm not trying to sell newspapers, not in the newspaper business.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so the more I ignored it, the more it enraged everyone, right? And it was just like, you know what? Okay, 3.5 years. I was number one for 5.5 years. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
It was unheard of at the time, right? Because, you know, and by the time Howard did beat me, right? Think about it. I mean, Howard got really pissed at Mel one day because when Opie and Anthony came along and they were both on the same station, right? You know, or both working for the same company, but Opie and Anthony work in the afternoon and Howard's working in the morning. Mel turns to Howard one day and says, look, he says, Howard, he says, everybody opens up doors for everybody else. Debella opened the door for you, and you opened the door for Opie and Anthony. And Howard went berserk. Nobody opened the door for me. Howard grew up listening to me on the radio, was already on the radio when Howard was still in high school.
Really?
You know, so it's like, come on.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm not taking, I don't want that to seem like I'm taking any credit for it. Howard is a talent on his own,
yeah,
and a genius. I mean, the way he has been managed and the way he has programmed his life and the way he has, you know, created his career is sheer brilliance, is absolute brilliance. But would I trade all of the other luggage he has for that? No, I'm real happy.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Howard and you can't deny his. Just, I mean, he really kind of changed. If you look at his path, and no one was taking that path at the time,
right?
And he's a great interviewer, and he seems. I mean, like I said, all the stuff I heard about you two, he seems very kind of remiss about it. Is it remiss, right word?
Yeah.
Like,
remiss would work, and it's the truth. But he has, and Howard had a lot of issues. Right, you know, and he was working them out on the radio and working them out in the therapist's office every single day, right? And I became, one of the tools for him to deal with those issues. But it was like, I knew who I was, right? I had the confidence in myself, and and if people chose to listen to me, well, then they do, and if they chose not to listen to me, I can't control that.
It's one of the things in radio is like it almost seems like guys don't mind starting a war. Mm-hmm. I know, and I'm a fan of you, Howard, and Opie and Anthony. And I know that you're not supposed to be a fan of everyone. That seems like
but that's three very different.
Yeah,
it's like saying I'm a fan of Louis C.K. and I'm a fan of Eddie Murphy.
Yeah,
and it's like it's night and day different deliveries, performances, all that stuff. I look at myself as I'm a radio performer. I'm not a disc jockey. I understand my medium. Yeah. I understand how to put it out there and how to play it for my audience and entertain my audience. I'm an entertainer. That's my job. I just happen to be doing it on the radio. Other guys are talk show hosts, right? And they're going to take it to whatever level. And Opie and Anthony, they're talk show hosts, but they are two voices being one character, right? Not really one character, but it's like because of the two of them, the show has a single voice, right? Because they're both coming from the same direction in a way, but it's three very, very different shows. So liking three different shows, I like Opie and Anthony, all right, and I don't really hear Howard. One of the things about everybody was like, well, have you heard of it? No, I was on the air.
I was working. Yeah.
I was on the air. I didn't listen.
Yeah, someone said something about a TV show. I was like, yeah, I work that night. I don't really get to see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I have, and like I said earlier, I don't listen to other radio shows because I'm too easily impressed. Yeah. And the next thing I know, I'm doing something, right? I
can't listen to Bill Burr's podcast anymore because I find myself, because I would really like to do a single podcast where it's just me speaking, but I find myself doing Bill Burr, only because his pacing is very him, but it's so infectious when he's like, ladies, like it's so infectious that you can't do a single podcast because you're going to end up sounding like him because there is a rhythm for a one-man speaking.
But and add to that there is a schizophrenia that certain people like Brewer.
Yeah.
Brewer can sit in a room and talk to himself for hours.
And I want to hear it. Like, I don't think people want to hear me talk to myself for hours.
Exactly. It's like it's an ability that some people have, and as much as you might enjoy it yourself, it just might not be for you.
Yeah.
You know, and the last thing you want to do is be Bill Burr light.
Right. No one wants to be derivative of anyone.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd consider yourself derivative of anyone.
No, not really. Not really. I mean, or let's put it this way: no one who is alive or still in radio. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, because all of the people that I was impressed by, all of the people that I really learned to do this from, are either literally dead or no longer on the radio.
Yeah.
And the one guy who still is on the radio is on, Sirius's, Standards channel playing Frank Sinatra records,
Yeah.
but that's Jonathan Schwartz, who I learned about music from Scott Muni. I learned how to, I learned how to be a jokester from Dan Ingram. I learned how to tell a story from who did I just say his name was? Jonathan Schwartz. And then whatever's left over is the natural me. But you have those people who are, you understand, like, this is what performance is all about. This is where you see how it's done. Like, okay, it's like actors. I mean, it's like, to say somebody like Bradley Cooper isn't influenced by, actors who came before him. I mean, he's not De Niro.
Oh, yeah. Every comedic actor these days was probably influenced by Vince Vaughn or Bill Murray or someone like, Vince Vaughn, when he came on the scene, his style of just being him was so original that I think I felt like you'd see guys that were like Vince Vaughn light or trying to be Vince Vaughn light.
All right. Now, as long as you brought up you said Bill Murray, and that's what made me trigger this. I'm going to tell you something that is going to make you shit your pants. Okay.
But that's very easy right now. I think I have irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh, there you go. I thought you had a little side cancer.
I have whatever. I think it's splenitis, something. I'm having shoulder, never mind. I'm crazy.
Why don't you just come down to the fact that you slept wrong?
Why don't I come down to the fact...
open in the hotel?
Why don't I come down to the fact that I just need to stop drinking the way I'm drinking? Like I'm drinking like I'm 22, and I'm a 41-year-old man whose body is not going to last forever. I need to get in shape, I need to lose weight, and I need to focus on my...
You are so prepping me for all my questions tomorrow. It's frightening.
So wait, tell me the story that's going to make me shit my pants.
Okay, so I'm in college, and I'm with a group of guys, and we put together this comedy show for the college radio station called, and we decided, because this is college stupid, right? It's called Fulton's Folly, the fabulously funny radio program heard on WVHE Sunday nights at 11. Right? We figured that way, if we gave it that title, everybody would have to promote it anytime they talked about it. But they didn't. They just called it Fulton's Folly, right? So Fulton's Folly, and it was a bunch of us, and it was just wacky radio bits, and we did all this stuff. And we had our own syndication deal. It was on Long Island, and other radio stations would hear it and go, this is great, we want to run it too. The syndication deal was, you send us a blank tape, and we'll make you a copy. That was the syndication deal.
Wow, grassroots.
Yeah. So it was on a couple of different college radio stations around Long Island, and one of the guys who lived there, or I'm not sure if it was him or his son, would listen to the show, and the guy was Matty Simmons. And Matty Simmons was the publisher of the National Lampoon.
Okay.
And the National Lampoon was, at that time, a lot of the people who were coming out of Second City and Groundlings and all of that stuff, right, were all beginning to write for the Lampoon. And they decided that they wanted to do the National Lampoon Comedy Hour. And we got approached by Matty Simmons, who contacted us himself directly, asked us if we would come in. So we go to Madison Avenue. We are college kids. We are sophomores and juniors in college. And we go to Madison Avenue, and we're in the offices of the National Lampoon. We're sitting there with Matty Simmons, and he tells us that he's doing this radio program, and they have all of these great comics and these great writers, but nobody's done radio before. Would we help? And we say, sure. And our first suggestion is make the show a half hour long. And they're like, no, it's got to be an hour. I said, no, you don't understand how much work it takes to put together an hour of produced radio. Figure 1 hour of production time for every 1 minute of radio that you're going to create. So no, we want it to be an hour. All right? And we'd like you guys to help. Why don't you guys write the bogus commercials and PSAs that will run for this? So it's Chevy Chase, it's all of the original Saturday Night Live people. It's John Belushi, it's Bill Murray, it's all these people. And I'm in college and I'm dealing with these folks.
Holy crap!
All right, but we're like these little college kids who are like, they tolerate us. It's not like I could pick up the phone now and go, "Hey, Dan Aykroyd, remember me?"
Yeah,
right. So. Although Murray would remember. And Murray's got the heart of a saint. He truly does.
He's an interesting guy. Yeah. He's changed a lot. Like he's changed a lot. He's apparently the guy who crashes bachelor parties.
Yes, he does that, and he's having the time of his life being Bill Murray.
Yeah,
he's just and he's happily married. He's got a great house. I think it's up in New York or Connecticut, something like that. And he's just the nicest guy you would want to meet. So anyway, here are all these people, and one of the people was Michael O'Donoghue. Michael O'Donoghue was had the negative Midas touch. Whatever he touched turned to shit.
Really?
Yeah, when he became a major player in the National Lampoon, that's when the National Lampoon went down the toilet. When he became the head writer for Saturday Night Live, that's when Saturday Night Live went down the toilet. And he was involved in this. So I had written this bogus commercial at the time in New York and probably all over the country, but I was a New Yorker, so I was affected by it in New York. There were a bunch of buy land in places ads. Red Buttons would be the guy selling it. He would come on, ha, 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 ho, 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 hey, it's Red Buttons here for Beau Rivage, right? And it would be these communities in Florida and Arizona for people to buy land in and go and build a house and retire there.
Yeah.
Right? So I decided, let's do a spot for buy land in Brooklyn. Right? We're going to do it the exact same way, but it's going to be now. At the time, this was like this kind of spot. No one had heard these things on the radio before, so they were new, they were unique, they were funny as all hell. Right? So, buy land in Brooklyn, and the keys were right. Come visit our mountains of garbage. Come visit our polluted rivers. Come visit our tree. Right? Now to this day, I'll get a giggle or a small laugh out of that.
Yeah.
O'Donoghue comes walking up to me and says, "Come visit our tree isn't funny." I said, "What are you talking about? It's not funny." He says, "This isn't funny. This bit isn't going to work. It's not going to work." And I said, "How do you know what is and what's not going to work?"
Yeah.
I said, "You wouldn't know funny if you tripped over it. Everything you do is just it's so bright and so intelligent that nobody laughs at it." Right? He's going, "Yes." Now here I am, right, a junior in college, screaming at a man in a hallway who has serious clout at the National Lampoon. Yeah. Right? And that a tree is funny, a tree is not funny, a tree is funny, a tree is not funny. Well, fuck you, I'm out, and so are my guys. And we literally, because we're ideological,
college kids,
students, right? And up we leave, and we're leaving. It's not like we're making big money on this, right? And we didn't even consider, right, what this could mean to our futures, right? Yeah. We're gone, we're out of here. And we leave, and we quit. The next week, it becomes the National Lampoon Radio Half Hour.
Really?
Because without us there, they realize, holy shit, these guys were right.
Yeah.
Right? You can't put that much, it takes so much work to make an hour's worth of radio.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it might have been 2 or 3 weeks, but but early in my career, I worked with all of those people.
Holy crap.
If I get around to writing my book is going to be called, "Oh yeah, I met him." Right? And it's all of these stories of people that I have spent time with. I mean, I have had a miraculous life that way because there are so many people that, and starting at a real young age, that I have, spent time with. And time where I have a good story about, spending time with, this rock star or...
Like who have you hit it off with? Maybe came in and do radio and was like maybe is famous now as a rock star or a comedian or an actor, but you hit it off with and you partied with or whatever.
Peter Gabriel.
Really?
I have a thing for Pete. Peter Gabriel but especially Pete Townsend. Pete Townsend and I are great friends.
Really?
Right? And it's funny because I recently saw him on the last tour. He was in town and I saw him and I brought him this interview that we had done like 23, 24 years ago. We did in 1993. And I said, listen, this is that interview that we did back when, right? And I said, the world in Philadelphia, this is like one of the most famous rock and roll interviews that's ever happened, right? And he's going, I have my copy. And I said, what? And he says, yeah. He says, you gave me a copy. I said, I still have the DATs. He says, they're on my desk. He says,
really?
Because that was one of the best interviews I ever did. Right? We did this interview. I spoke to him for 2.5 hours. And then when I went through this stage where I became sort of like John Debella, rock psychologist.
Yeah.
Where a lot of these guys that were going through these changes because they were getting older, and how do you deal with it, And I would bring up, where is this part of your aspect? You've lost this person who was you, and we would get into all of these stories. Right? And the night that I did this with Townsend, we talked for 2.5 hours, and when I was done, he turned to me and said, I said, I can go longer, I could do more. Right? And I'm like, Pete, I got nothing left.
Yeah, I asked you all the good ones.
Right? I mean, the man performed 3 songs in front of me, closer than you are to me right now.
Really?
Right? There was like a microphone. Our knees were practically touching, and he performed Join Together, Pinball Wizard, and Behind Blue Eyes right in front of me.
Really?
Right in front of me, right in, and it's like, and there were other people in another room, but those were mine. And then he yelled at me because when he did Pinball Wizard, right, he gets to the part, how do you think he does it? And the voice goes, I don't know, right? He was upset that I didn't jump in. Like I'm gonna interrupt Pete Townsend.
Like I'm gonna think it's time to start garage canning it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But there are a lot of people who Joan Jett is one of my oldest and closest friends.
Really?
Right? Yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who happen to be rock stars. Right? I don't have a lot of rock star friends, and the only person I was ever wrong about in regards to that was Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart, one of the nicest people you would ever want to meet. I always thought that he was going to be a big dick, egotistical rock star, and he is so far from it, it's frightening.
Really?
And that only happened this year.
What do you mean?
I mean, this year he was going to call in to interview to basically you're doing a call in interview, right? And we were going to have him for 10 minutes, right? He stayed on the phone for 40.
Really?
He was having so much fun in the interview. And then invited us, when I come to town, I want all of you guys backstage. I want to meet you guys, right? And we went backstage. He autographed a guitar for us for my charity.
That's so cool.
Right? It's just like so. And the stories go on and on and on and on and on, right? How I was being followed by Donovan for 6 months, right? All kinds of crazy.
Wait, how you were being followed by Donovan? Donovan's a Philadelphia legend, right?
No.
Well, is that who I'm thinking of?
No, you're thinking of the Donovan McNabb.
Nope. I'm thinking of who's the songwriter who grew up in Norristown that anyway, tell your story. My recollection is horrible.
No, I'm not sure who you're referencing. No, this is Donovan McLeach, but Donovan of hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah, I know who Donovan is. Who am I thinking of?
Yeah, you need an echo for that, really. Everywhere. This is funny that now he didn't know he was doing this. I was in Philadelphia, and I was on my way to the West Coast. And as I was leaving Philadelphia, there were ads on the radio for Donovan was coming to perform someplace. Right? I get to I am going from Philadelphia to Hawaii. I'm going on vacation. And at that time, if you wanted to there was no direct flight from Philadelphia. So you could go to either Chicago or St. Louis. And I get into St. Louis, and we're sitting waiting to change planes, and there's a couple of hours delay, and the radio's playing, and there's a ad for Donovan coming to St. Louis. Okay, fine. All right? So I get to Hawaii. We're staying at the Hyatt in Maui. All right? And who's performing like the night before we leave? Donovan. All right. So everywhere I go, I can't avoid the man.
Yeah.
All right. Now I come back, and on the way back, I have to do a charity special, right, for I forget, some prickly heat. I don't know what the hell it was for. I had to do some charity special in L.A. So we leave on vacation. I'm going to stop in L.A. and I'm at the Universal Studios. You know those two big towers right there, right by the 101?
Yeah.
Right, one of them's it's a Hilton or something like that.
Sheridan.
Sheridan? Okay, so I'm checking in. I go walking up to the elevator. Elevator doors open, and who's standing there but Donovan? Right?
Really?
To which I say, "Stop following me!" No, I freak him out. I freak him out completely, right? And it's like he has no idea what I'm talking about. 4 weeks later, he's performing on my shows in Atlantic City, those shows I told you about before.
Yeah.
And he comes out on stage and he's like, "Really, I'm not following you. I'm really not following you at all."
Oh, that's crazy.
So I mean, it's wacky stories like that where sometimes it's not, I don't necessarily have a complete contact with it, but it ends with something like, along those lines.
Do you think, how long do you think you'll do radio for?
I'm about to sign a new deal. I'm about to sign another 3-year contract.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I love it, and I'm having more fun now than I have had in easily 25 or 30 years.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, understand. I've been in Philadelphia alone for 31 years. Right,
Yeah.
And that's what all these jerseys are about. Although they're all from last year, I don't want to have them switched to 31.
That's so funny. How's Philly changed since the time you've been here?
It's cleaner, it's hipper. It still is very, very. If Philly has two drawbacks, and they are. It's the worst highway system in the nation.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. It's truly, it's like being in New England. You can't get there from here.
Yeah.
Right? And Philadelphia drivers only know one way to get everywhere. Right? If you want to know how to get around Philadelphia, ask somebody who's not from here.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody who's not from here takes chances and finds other ways to go places.
Oh, yeah.
Philadelphians learn one way, and that's the only way to go.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a city of neighborhoods. All right? And it prides itself in being a city of neighborhoods. But unlike other cities, right, these neighborhoods don't band together. So they don't, it's never, it's like in New York, Queens might go up against Brooklyn, but it's all the Queens that's for Queens.
Yeah.
Right? In Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia might be Northeast Philadelphia and Greater Northeast and maybe Mayfair and a couple of other areas and stuff like that. And they don't know, no, I'm from my area. And that's it. So they don't team up enough.
Yeah. My family was from the main line.
Right? Oh, were they? Where in the main line?
Out by Villanova and.
Okay. Well, there's Villanova, there's Gladwin, there's Bryn Mawr.
My sister was born in Bryn Mawr Hospital.
Okay, all right.
My grandmother lived across the street from Valley Forge Military.
Oh, okay.
And on St. David's.
So that really is. Yeah, I guess that is. Oh, where is that? That's Wayne.
Wayne. That's it. I knew the answer to that. I don't know why I didn't just tell you. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't.
No, I'm a mainline asshole myself.
I remember driving, and there was a sign. I just remember driving through a sign that said Germantown.
Yes.
And I remember being like, Germantown.
Yeah, we also have Swedesboro.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm taking my grandmother to dinner on Sunday.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're staying?
Yeah, I'm going to stay Sunday night because it's the flights into. I got to go to Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, there's a thrill.
Yeah. So I've never been. Oddly enough, I always like the South. South is really charming to me. So you go to a place like Huntsville, and I just want to go to all the gas stations. I love that about the South. That's the one thing that the North doesn't have on the South. The gas stations have so much authenticity to them. And I was taking this kid on Trip Flip. I was taking this whole family. It's going to air, I think, in a couple weeks. We take them to Orlando, and I got the two kids, and they're from Pittsburgh. And I said, and we're in Florida,
where the sky is brown and yellow, and the plants are smart as the people. It's not the edge of the universe, but you can see it from there.
And so I got the kids. They're the Gross family, and I got the kids, and I go, I know that's the name. They call themselves Gross People, and so. I take their kids into the store and I go, guys, this is the best thing about the South because we're in Florida and we're in Oldsmar. No, we're in out by Crystal River. Mm-hmm. I go, this is the best thing about the South is rednecks. And I was like, I'm from the South and I'm telling you. I go, do you guys know what a redneck is? And they're like, no. And I was like, you don't know what a redneck is? I go, they're like, no. I go, it's it's the culture down here. It's I go, look, I'll show you. So we take them into a grocery store and I go, and you're gonna love redneck fare, like redneck food. They got pig's feet, they got pickled eggs, they got boiled peanuts, and they walk in and it just turns out the grocery store we walk into is owned by Indians. And so the kids just staring at him.
You mean dot, not feather,
right?
Okay.
I'm just let down. So we go in. They don't have anything. We walk out, and the kids are like, "Were those rednecks?" I was like, "No, they were not." And I was like, "Oh, we'll just wait. We'll run into them. I promise."
No, they were Pakistanis.
And I was like, "No, they're not red. They'll never be a redneck. They don't have the burn."
When we're done, I will tell you why rednecks are called rednecks, and I bet you have absolutely no idea why.
I thought it was because they worked in the fields.
That's what everybody thinks, but that's not it.
Why can't you tell me on this?
I can tell you now. All right. The group of people who really settled that part of the South, and especially Florida, were the Scotch-Irish. And the Scots-Irish were literally a combination of those two societies who came over to the United States. They never even started in the North. They started like in Georgia and worked their way down there. And they were basically mocked and vilified, and they ended up settling in Florida. And in order to identify themselves to each other, they would wear red bandanas around their necks. Hence, rednecks.
Are you shitting me?
No, that is it. Oh, the one thing you don't want to do is get into history conversations with me.
Holy crap.
Eddie Izzard was here a couple of weeks ago, and we just had a field day because he is like, I am dust. I am dust on a countertop in comparison to the deep topsoil that Eddie Izzard is when it comes to history. The man knows so much. It's frightening. It is frightening, but that is why they are called rednecks. And I gave you the abridged version of it, but that's really what it comes
fucking
from.
Fascinating. I always feel weird when I curse.
The only thing that's new in the world is the history you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Harry Truman, not me.
God, this has been a blast. I really appreciate you doing this,
that's
John.
Quite all right. That's quite all right. I had a blast doing it myself, to tell you the truth. I would do this anytime. That's why when you said you needed somebody to do it, I volunteered. I never do it. I'm always the interviewer.
Yeah.
I'm never the interviewee.
Well, you're fascinating. You got a wealth of history, especially radio history, and I feel like... do you have any regrets in your career?
Let's see. In my career,
I mean, life is one thing. I have regrets, but like career regrets,
would probably be, if anything at all, two things. One is that my present wife wasn't in my life earlier.
Yeah,
and that I really didn't have. I never, throughout my life, never had good guidance. It was always trial and error. I never had a mentor who helped me through stuff. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I envy Howard, because he had Don Buchwald.
Yeah.
Right? And Howard had a plan, and Don Buchwald made that plan happen. Right, and I never. So I regret. I trusted people too easily. I got screwed multiple times. I lost more money to managers and lawyers than most disc jockeys make in their careers.
Yeah.
Right. But those are the only regrets that I really have. I wish. It would have been nice if I really knew how to play an instrument. I mean, I was a drummer, but that's like saying, "Ooh, I can tap things," right? But that's not really a regret. But those are the things. If there was a way that my wife is a business genius,
really,
right? Well, here I'll give you my favorite story about my wife and what a business genius she is. I had sold a home. This was before we got married, and I had a business manager at that time. And my wife, in her previous marriage, had handled all of the family business and investments and all of that stuff. This is not what her background is.
Yeah.
Right? But she was just good at it. So I had sold this house, and I got a nice piece of change, and I took half of it, and I gave it to my business manager, and I took the other half, and I gave it to my wife, and I told him to do something with it. It was money I sort of fell into because I had a new home, and I had just sold this other one. I didn't, I could have just put it in the bank or invested in something. So let's see what these people can do with it. And neither one knew that the other one had it, right? So a year later, I turned to my business manager, and I want an understanding. I went, okay, what's my return on that money that I gave you? And he increased it by 12%, which is, that's great. I mean, anybody will gladly take 12%. It's better than any bank's going to give you, over the money that, over that investment. My wife doubled it.
Would she take it to a casino?
No. She just invested in the right things and put the money in the right places. And that's why I don't have a business manager anymore.
Holy shit!
So I wish she was in my life earlier.
Yeah, my wife's like that. My wife will go, "You want to be cheered up?" And I'll be like, "What?" She's like, "Look how much money I saved." Right. And she'll click it, and I'll be like, "Wait, how did you do that?"
Yeah. Well, my wife, I have the sort of my wife. I say she's frugal. She says she's value oriented. All right. But when my wife is holding a quarter, you can hear the eagle scream.
What a fucking great line. Oh, that's such a great line.
It's like, oh, that's tight. That is tight. All right, dude.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate this. This has been a blast.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Like I said, I never get the opportunity to do this. So this is terrific.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
See you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. That was great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
This episode was brought to you by The Machine.